This is Talk It Out, the Women's Agenda podcast. Tune in for your weekly download on the latest news, trends and ideas affecting your career or your business. Here's your host, Angela Priestley.
Hello and welcome to the Women's Agenda podcast. Once again, I am here in the studio with Georgie Dent, our contributing editor. How are you, Georgie?
Very well, thank you.
And our guest today is Natalie Isaacs, the CEO of 1 Million Women, which is an online network that aims to encourage women to make everyday choices about their consumption habits to reduce their effects on climate change. How are you, Natalie?
Good, thank you.
And a little bit more I should share about Natalie is that she was named the 2017 Conservationist of the Year by Australian Geographic magazine. Pretty amazing. So also we've had you on the podcast previously and we've heard a little bit about your story, and I know that I've interviewed you in the past as well, but an incredible background story in that you originally started out, or you were the CEO of a cosmetics manufacturing company almost 10 years ago. Would that be right?
And for 24 years.
And for 24 years, okay.
My entire working career.
Wow, and so you've almost been running 1 Million Women for almost a decade.
That's right. Yeah.
And so just another couple more decades after that and you can beat that record.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Truly having, both sides of your career in very, very different worlds. And now Natalie has just published a book called Every Woman's Guide to Saving the Planet, which really, I think the title says so much, and we've already been Georgie and I have been sitting here thumbing through it, and there's all these amazing practical tips and other things that can really help you out if you are looking to see how you can reduce your carbon emissions, reduce your food waste, your clothing waste, and other things that you can do at home to make a real difference that will lead to a collective difference, which is, I guess, the whole point to 1 Million Women as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about collective power.
Perhaps as a start, maybe you could give us a bit of background on founding 1 Million Women and how it's gotten to the point now of having hundreds of thousands of members and getting closer to that 1 million goal.
Yeah, it's certainly been a journey, and as you were saying, I used to be a cosmetics manufacturer, so really my life was all about overpackaging, but it all changed around 2006, and I think that the world was getting the point on climate change in 2006. There was Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, and here in Australia we were suffering from incredibly early bushfires, and anyway, there were things happening throughout 2006, but the thing that actually, I guess we're working towards my epiphany, but the thing that actually changed my life forever was I got my electricity consumption down by 20%. I was just being more vigilant around the house and made a point of that. That was my goal. And when I saw the bill and I saw that I'd saved all this pollution and all this money just by being more vigilant, that's when I took ownership of the issue. And before then, I was really nowhere on my own climate change journey.
I have just flipped open very randomly to a page, but something has jumped out at me that the average household has 300,000 items. The self-storage market is going through the roof. We have so much stuff that over the course of our lifetime, we are likely to spend a total of 3,688 hours, which equates to 153 days searching for misplaced items.
I mean, what a great way to put it. It's like your energy consumption savings. That's saved search costs.
You could have 153 extra days where you are not searching for things. Isn't it just mad though that the fact that we have all this stuff and we're paying for storage because we don't have enough room in our own houses and we're still buying more stuff.
I know.
Why?
I know. It is this thing, overconsumption has just gone crazy. And I think it's this, it is a lot about affluent society. And there's this misguided belief that stuff makes us happy. And we use buying things when we use that if we're feeling down, we go and buy something because we think that is what's going to solve that problem, when in fact it isn't stuff that makes us happy. It's loving the earth and its experiences, and we've got to get back to that, because at the moment, if the world lived like we do here in Australia, we would need 4.5 planets. And, we just can't sustain that. And so we need to take a breath before we buy something.
And that's something that, going back, say, the almost 10 years since you've started this movement, I guess the stuff thing has probably increased. I know that we've seen the minimalist movement probably alongside that, but when I think about clothes, like the fast fashion idea, that seems to have really taken off in the last few years, if not maybe that 10-year period.
That's right. And there's, I mentioned it in the book, I don't know if you can find it, but it's the fast fashion industry has truly exploded. And there are some brands that have 400 micro seasons. And how do we keep up with that?
Micro seasons, wow. Okay.
It's impossible.
So more than like multiple seasons a week.
I think also, and do you know what, Natalie, last time you were in, we may have spoken about this specifically, but I do find that with kids, they're things just like their feet. Okay, their feet grow so quickly and you have to buy shoes. And I constantly have this battle between you don't want to go for the cheapest because you know that there's sort of dreadful side effects that happen when you do that. But at the same time, they need things all the time. So where do you find the balance between buying, because with kids you can't expect to buy something and it's going to last forever.
Oh, that's
We
right.
are lucky we have three of the same 3 girls, which means there's been a lot of hand-me-downs, and that works out quite well. Because we haven't had to sort of buy everything again. But then there are certain things like shoes; they just wear them out, and you can't pass them down.
It is a challenge. There's no doubt about it, and that's where the sharing economy is growing. And the more that we can share our things, when I was having kids, 20 years ago. You didn't share. You just didn't. You just bought new things. And so I do think that it is slow, but in the last 10 years of doing 1 Million Women, I have seen, the growth in so many different industries, and the sharing economy is definitely one of them. And buying things secondhand, where it was so fringe when I was bringing up small children, but I do think that it is getting more and more popular, and but it's definitely a challenge. It definitely is.
Yeah.
The other thing that gets
I have
me,
so many challenges with kids, and I'm about to.
Same, and this might be something that you can relate to, but again, it's something I've talked about before, but it's the food wastage. And the kids know now that they, particularly my eldest, she's saying, "Mum, I'm really sorry, but I just can't eat the rest of my cereal." And it's because I just say to them, I don't want us to throw food out all the time. And once cereal is in a bowl with milk and yogurt, you can't reuse that. There's certain things that obviously you can, and I try to go with small portions to start with. But some days they eat 4 bowls, and then other days I give them a medium-sized portion and they don't eat it. And the mountain of food that goes to waste, I hate it.
I know. Food waste is such a big issue. In Australia, we waste 1 in 5 shopping bags of food. And I think so much of it is just habit that we don't even know that we're doing it. We're at the supermarket and we're seduced by the 2-for-1 deals, or we tend to always cook more than we really need, and we don't have a plan for leftovers, and we don't shop in our fridges before we go shopping, and we don't write to a list, and all those things that if we just flipped it, that we go shopping in our fridge first, and we write a list, and we manage leftovers, and we don't have portion sizes too big, and we get ourselves a couple of worm farms, and it is so easy to manage food waste. It really is. When I had my epiphany, I got my food waste down by 80%.
Wow,
and that really was just thinking about the journey of food from when you go into the shopping centre or supermarket or farmer's market, wherever you are, right through to what you're going to do with the leftovers. And it is such a big issue. It's an issue all around the world, but yes, there's a toolkit in the book that is all about, what are the steps to reduce your food waste. And all of this contributes to climate change. It is all part of it.
I have one more on kids, and then we'll move on from kids and the mini disasters that they create in the home. But one thing where I see a lot of waste, and I kind of almost wish that we could call an amnesty on party bags.
Oh my God.
And I think that it's so cheap to buy this junk, and the kids also come to expect it. And it's not just the sugar and the lollies that are going into it. They often don't get eaten anyway, because I see this, crap coming through, and I end up chucking out a lot of it before they even see it, because I don't want them eating that much sugar. But it's the little plastic random thing, like non-things that arrive in it, that are just such a waste.
And actually, do you know what? This is a fight that happens in our house virtually every weekend when there is a party, because the one child that's gone to the party, the other people see the little bits of junk, and suddenly that's the one bit of junk that their life desperately needs, and their life, their happiness depends upon it. And then my husband and I very often look at each other and we're just like, party bags are the bane of our existence. And they really are. I can't see anything positive about them. I think we maybe do need to start a campaign where we actually ban them.
It's one of those things where obviously I think the parents would all be in on it. It's the kids, dealing with the kids who, after years and years, they come to expect it, and they get to the point, they're asking the parents where the party bags are.
We'll go over to a friend's house and we'll say, oh, it's such and such's birthday. And they say, oh, will there be party bags? No, we're going for a barbecue because it's someone's house. We're not. Of course, there's not going to be party bags.
And look, it is. Only we can shift the story, and that's where, it is, behaviour change is a hard thing to change. It's hard because we're trying to do it in a structured framework of our high consumption society, and so the only people that can change it is us. And that's the thing about action, is that, and what we do at 1 Million Women, because at 1 Million Women we try to show that when you are part of a collective, when there's millions of us doing the same thing, it shifts systems. And so, I think we should do something about the party bags. I'm going to go back and talk to the team about that one.
I can get you some photos of what's going on in them at the moment. And, a niche issue. It's a little bugbear of mine at the moment. And I think one of them is, I remember having party bags. We called them lolly bags because there were never any toys or anything in it. They were lolly bags, and they were very small. And you wouldn't think about them as being the key part of going to a party. But now it is the price thing, and it all comes down to things being so cheap that we're not actually seeing the value in them anymore, which I think the same with a bottle of water, that the plastic around the bottle costs more to produce than the actual water in it, and we're not seeing it as a thing that needs to be recycled because it's just so cheap to have these things.
That's
and
right.
Maybe this is misguided, but from my memory, lollies were not... in my childhood, lolly bags were quite unique because lollies were not generally ubiquitous. They just weren't an everyday occurrence. Whereas I see when my kids play sport, there's lollies at training, and then there's lollies at the game, and then there's lollies at halftime, and they're just everywhere. And then they go to parties, and there's lollies at the party, and then there's lollies in the bag, and there's junk in the bags, and then there's fights. And then
all the fights.
There's an angry set of parents.
Okay.
Yeah,
we can do something with 1 Million Women on this. We can solve the sugar epidemic and the obesity epidemic that's occurring, and the waste that's occurring at the same time.
This is a commercial break for Work It Out. We'll be back in a moment. But if you're interested in being a sponsor for Work It Out or Women's Agenda, just drop us a line and let us know. That's womensagenda.com.au.
So maybe we could also talk a little bit about energy consumption. And we published a piece on this recently from a doctor who talked about how she got her energy bills down, and she found that was a way to really communicate to people about what you can do about climate change. Because if you just talk climate change, people are, especially in today's political environment, unfortunately. But if you talk about costs and price and things that you can bring down, the same with food consumption, I guess, as well. If you can reduce your food waste by 80%, you're ultimately saving money at the supermarket. But what are some of those practical things at home in terms of saving on your energy bill.
Yeah, and it's such a good point. You know, 10 years on from when when I started. And sorry, I'm going to get to your question. But when I started 1 Million Women, the words climate change was in every conversation about how you drive changes. This is about, if we're talking about energy, we're talking about climate change. If we're talking about food waste, we're talking about climate change and plastics in the ocean. And the interesting thing is today, we don't even have to say climate change anymore. It's so personal. Food waste is a personal thing, and the plastics in the ocean is a personal thing, and electricity prices are so high. It's so personal now that it is. And all of it is linked to climate change, but you don't need to even say that anymore. And so driving energy efficiency is one of the most impactful things that we can do to save money and to be a contribution to the solution to climate change. And you start by, one of the things that I think you have to do though, instead of looking at 10 top tips of how to reduce your energy consumption, look at the rhythm of your house. Look at the way you use electricity. What are the lights that you turn on, when you wake up of a morning, or what's the light you leave on before you go to bed? Is it an energy sucking halogen light, or or can you put on a low energy light? Do you have to use a dryer? Can you ditch the dryer altogether? Because the dryer is one of the biggest energy guzzling items. I think in the household it accounts for 12% of their energy. And I know that it's hard to it's so convenient to just throw things in the dryer.
And if you don't have the backyard, I guess, in the space.
It is. I know it's not that easy, but even if you could get one of those
like a clothes horse, or
if you haven't got the space, but that's a really big one. Or if you have a pool, just turning the pool pump down by 1 hour can save half a ton of pollution. Or if you've got a second fridge, turn it off and only turn it on when you really
cut
need
your
it.
food waste, and then
And energy is such a big one that we can all do. Do you know, in Australia, if 1 million households could get their energy consumption down by 20%, and 20% is so easy. Every one of us can do that. It's the low-hanging fruit. Even if you think you are already fantastic at energy efficiency, I reckon you could still get it down another 20%. And if you can just have a look around the house and see what things you've still got left on, and what things you can, what lights you can turn off, and what are the things that you can use less of. If we could all reduce by 20%, it could shut down 2 coal-fired power stations. That's so powerful.
It's a reasonable challenge to set yourself as well, to set your family. And that's to really think about that and to try and see it as some kind of accomplishment, I guess, after that period, which would be lovely to see.
And involve your family, because that's another big tip, is that if you're doing this stuff at home, you actually need everybody in the house on board, particularly when it comes to energy efficiency and food waste, but you want everyone on board.
The final thing, when I lost my train of thought previously, was just to ask about air conditioning, heating. What can we do there? I mean, it's unrealistic, especially in certain parts of Australia, not to use heating, say, at certain times of the year. But do you have any tips around that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of making sure, that you're dressed appropriately, because a lot of the time we're in our houses not dressed appropriately, but having the heating and the air conditioning on to keep us cool or keep us warm. So dressing appropriately is really important. And when it comes to heating, making sure that there's no gaps, there's no holes in the floor, or there's gaps in the window, or the windows aren't closing properly, or all those things so the heat stays in, and making sure that the windows have thick curtains if you're wanting to, you can have thick curtains. But trying to have your air conditioning down by 1 degree or up by 1 degree makes a big difference in the winter and the summer. Just don't have it so high. That really helps. Or get a fan in the summer. Get a fan as opposed to air conditioning. Air conditioning and heating are the biggest.
Yeah. So they're above the dryers there, especially a little electric heater, I imagine, particularly.
They are the biggest area where you can save, and the biggest contribution to household energy. And households account for 17% of global emissions.
Wow. Okay. Because that's where I was going to go next.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were thinking this, Georgie, but I mean, because again, if I look at 2009 when he founded 1 Million Women and the environment and things that were going on there, and 2018, and we're no further ahead politically on this issue. In fact, we'd probably say we're actually further behind. It's become such a hot topic that we've seen, it in some ways bring down multiple prime ministers over the last few years. So that's, I think there must be I don't know if you've ever had that point. It's like, why the effort at home if it's not going to count for anything in the broader context when we can't do the bigger things that we need to do as a nation to make this happen. But I guess it is reassuring to hear, the 17%.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a huge part.
It's a huge part. And never underestimate the power of lifestyle change. I've just come back from San Francisco. There was a big global Climate Action Summit. It was a big summit, and I've been to quite a few of these summits and conferences over the years, and this one was different. And lifestyle change was front and centre in terms of the solutions. And, because the political will, particularly in this country, but in many, is not there, that, you have to rise. We need it, absolutely. And it would make things a lot easier if we had it, of course. But we have to rise above politics, and we have to get on with it. And the power of people to shift systems and to make change is extraordinary. When I was there, they had this big graph showing the progress of the electric vehicle and where we're going to be in another 10 years. 1 in 6 cars will be electric. That's an extraordinary, that's progress. In Australia, we have nearly 1.9 million households that have solar. There's a rooftop solar revolution going on, and we're leading the world in that. The technology is rapidly happening, faster than you can imagine, and all of this is happening in spite of what's the lack of progress.
Do you see some reactions to the political environment? I could look at, say, what you said in the US is part of the lifestyle movement there. Does some of it come in reaction to Trump and pulling
absolutely
out of Paris? And have you seen anything in Australia similar? Or?
Well, I think that just on the US one, although Trump pulled out of Paris, it was something like 495. It's 490 something. I can't know exactly, but cities that have signed on to the Paris Agreement, and they're so they are rising above Trump, and that was a big message there. And I think that the hard thing is the confusion when your government is not leading on this, and the confusion for investment into your country. It is so damaging when your government does not have climate action front and center, but people then are even more determined to get on with it.
I'm just reading data now that from last week that Australia's emissions actually increased 1.3% in the year to March, except in land use and electricity, where renewable energies are having a bigger impact. So it is, I mean, I certainly find it frustrating. I know that you address some parts of this in the book as well as what you can do to try and lobby your local political member.
That's right.
Yeah.
And look, when it comes to behaviour change, and the thing that we always say at 1 Million Women, and what I say in the book, is that you can't just fight for it. So you can't just be lobbying government. You have to live it too. But you have to do it all. And living climate action means you have to find your voice too. And it means that you have to use that come time of election. You have to vote for politicians that have climate change or climate action at the top of the agenda, and let your local member know that's what you're going to do. And because we can be absolutely sure that our politicians are governed by us, and that's, if they know that is what we're voting for, they'll do something about it. But I know it's been woeful. It's woeful. It's terrible where our, when I started 1 Million Women, it was actually the halcyon days. There was, for a very brief moment, bipartisan support on this. And then, Tony Abbott called it crap, and it all unravelled from there. But
And I mean, the curious thing is, and this is a positive thing, the vast majority of Australians are genuinely interested in this issue, and they recognise that it needs attention. And I think that, just flipping through your book, I think remembering the different ways that we do have power is really important. So, using your voice to lobby politicians is important, but also how you spend your money is important, because we do have power. And I remember there's been a couple of things on social media this year about particular fruit and vegetables that is being packaged in sort of double plastic.
yeah.
And if we stop buying those, if enough people stop buying those, the supermarket might stop wrapping them apples in 2 lots of different plastic that's completely unnecessary.
That's
and
right.
I think you've got to, and the book is terrific at sort of laying out a few different steps there, but our purchasing power is something we have.
Completely. And, I know as a cosmetics manufacturer, I used to be really obsessed. I did... I manufactured 4 brands. One was really beautiful, true to my heart, and was all about holistic, what it means to be truly and honestly beautiful. It has to come from within. And it was, but the other 3 brands, I was just seduced by department stores and produced products that looked fantastic, but were just cheap. It was just cheap stuff packaged in 5 or 6 layers of plastic, and that when it was there under the Christmas tree, and when you'd rip off all that plastic, and a week later the product would probably break too. It was that kind of stuff. And and I used to go to the department stores a week before Christmas and just watch people take my product. And that's what it was all about. If my product was left on the shelf, it wouldn't be there the following year.
Yeah.
And so I knew at that point, I brought all that kind of, learnings into 1 Million Women, that we are just so powerful as consumers. With every dollar we spend, we're shaping the world we want.
Yeah, and it's definitely the case with supermarkets, and how you do. And I know that I turn away from overpackaged vegetables and look for something that's not overpackaged. And I think that we saw it with the war on waste as well, which had great success in changing the acceptable size of things like carrots and bananas. And in a lot of cases, I don't think many Australians knew how much food was being wasted purely because it didn't meet an aesthetically pleasing identity to us.
The cosmetic standards.
Yeah, but when you know, you can kind of demand more from that. You can demand that you're happy to look at the odd bods and things like that, and especially if you can get them for cheaper, that's even better.
Even better. And how empowered do you feel when you go shopping and you don't buy things in plastic because that's your choice? So long as there are products on the shelf that you can buy not in plastic, that you buy the ugly fruit or vegetables, as Harris Farm calls them, that you're trolley has just no plastic in it. It's a really empowering feeling to know that you've done that. You've done that shop without any plastics, and you're supporting the poor old ugly fruit as opposed to the perfect,
the ugly beautiful fruit. I wanted to ask you one more thing, which I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on. It's about the single-use plastic bags. So obviously a big issue over the past few months in Australia with the major supermarket chains phasing them out, and some of the controversy that caused in some areas. But I've gone on to read that some of the reusable bags need to be used something like over 100 times before they kind of make up for the fact that you've taken away the plastic bag. Now, I know I haven't used an exact stat there, but can I ask your thoughts on what are the best reusable bags? If you have any ideas on that, is it necessarily the ones that you buy at Woolworths and Coles, or is there something else?
Yeah, the issue is if you continue to forget your bags and then every time you're in Coles you buy new ones, that really is just adding to the problem. So the key is to, just whatever bags you already have in the house, no matter what they look like, whatever you can use as a carry bag, get an old T-shirt and turn that into a bag. There's so many different ways you can make a bag, and that's what you use. Just and remember to keep them in your car or in your bag so that you don't have to keep buying new bags, because it is true. It's like your keep cup. I'm really forgetful. I'm so bad, and so I used to forget my keep cup all the time. And back in the early days of 1 Million Women, I used to forget my keep cup, and then I'd go, oh my goodness, I have to. So I'd buy another keep cup, but I didn't get my takeaway cup, but I bought another keep cup, and then I'd lose that and buy another one, and it was just not actually solving the problem, because it still takes embedded carbon. It takes so much to make a cup. And so we just have to try harder. I'm saying this for myself, definitely, to remember to keep those things in the car and have them with you so you don't have to keep buying, and just use anything you have in your house that you can carry things in. That's what we should do.
I did hear a good tip. I don't know if I'm there yet, maybe in a few years, but it was from Bea Johnson. So she does a zero waste lifestyle. I interviewed her recently, but one of hers for the bags was she would use old sheets and she would create her own bags out of those. So if you're good with a sewing machine, I guess it's not really a skill I have yet, possibly in the future, but there are things that you can do in terms of reusing some of those materials and clothing for other purposes later on.
Absolutely. We've got a good DIY for T-shirts, turning T-shirts into bags.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, so absolutely. Just use anything that you can create a bag out of. I'm not very good at sewing either, but I can definitely do a T-shirt into a bag.
Okay. Well, so the instructions are on the 1 Million website somewhere.
They're in the book.
Oh, they're in the book?
Yeah,
okay.
They are actually in the book, that one.
Okay. Yeah. All right, great. Well, the book is Every Woman's Guide to Saving the Planet by Natalie Isaacs, and it's in all good bookstores, ABC Books.
ABC Books, Booktopia, and in bookstores across the country.
Yeah, and it's really beautifully set out as well. So it you could just open any page, like I've just opened onto your anti-shopping list. So before you buy anything, to consider these things, and it's a great checklist there. So much in there. So do go and check it out.
Thank you.
But before we lose you, Natalie, we'll do our recommendation for the week. Georgie might kick off with you. You said you have a good one, so I'm waiting in huge anticipation.
I do. Oh, look, I don't know whether it's worth anticipation, but another television series that I've been hooked on, and actually maybe one of our guests has mentioned this, so I'm a bit later to it, but The Split, which is a British television series about a family of 3 daughters and a mother, and the mother is the principal partner at a family law firm in London, and 2 of the girls are also family lawyers. One of them works in the family business and the other one has quite controversially left and is now working for a different firm. And anyway, I've only watched a couple of episodes, but I'm already very hooked, and it seems to me to be quite clever, and I find it compelling viewing. they're all quite interesting.
Awesome. I'm on it. ABC iView, I think.
ABC iView, yes.
Natalie, do you have one?
Well, yes. Actually, I just finished watching Mad Men, and I guess I'm a bit late to the Mad Men series, but oh my goodness, it was fantastic. And it was, all set in the 60s, and I can even remember some of I know I was very young, but I can still remember Scotch Guard and some of the other things. And it's been a long time. The last time I did any binge watching of television was
Did you binge all series
I
at
did.
once?
Like it took me a month.
Yeah.
But see, I mean, it is a good
What
way.
a great month. I know.
It is a good way to do certain TV shows, and I think, Mad Men is one of those where it's such a unique series, and it's so sort of beautifully detailed in a different time.
Yes, so perfect. I just saying the last time I ever I've watched anything like that was The West Wing, so that was a long time ago.
Also another good series.
Yes, brilliant.
So mine is a book that I have just gotten today, haven't read it yet, but it is signed by Lee Sales, which is very exciting. So it is her book, Any Ordinary Day, and I've read a piece about this today because I heard her speak earlier this morning, and I noted that it was a book that I just looked at it and I said, I do not want to read that, because in it Lee goes and interviews people who've really experienced the worst possible day and really in the media spotlight. So she interviews somebody who lost his wife and 2 children in the Port Arthur massacre. She talked today about Philip Hughes. I'm not sure if she did interview his family, but that sort of, there's really shocking events where you can think, those split decisions that could have happened on that day, like Katrina Dawson going in and ordering a hot chocolate at the Lindt Cafe, because so it was, what she discussed today was all about our human, a lot of human behaviour and the fear we have about those situations, and that quick idea, that could have been me. I could have walked into that cafe that day, or, I play cricket and that could have, and you think that could somehow be, but really the likelihood is actually, when it comes to death and other terrible things, that it won't be these, a terrorist attack necessarily. It won't be these huge media-grabbing headline situations. But so I looked at it, I thought, oh, that just looks too heavy. But she was so amazing speaking about it today, and she brings so much hope and warmth, and she talks about resilience, and ultimately how what she learnt from a lot of these people is that they do go on. Which was really nice. So I am going to give it a go, and actually can't wait to get stuck into it. So it was a Business Chicks event this morning in Sydney, and so she's doing quite a bit of touring at the moment, I think, but it's looks like a good one. And that's it for us this week. So a reminder that you can subscribe to Women's Agenda for free. We go out just before lunchtime and we share the latest news and views affecting your lives and your careers. Also check out Every Woman's Guide to Saving the Planet by Natalie, and the website 1 Million Women, where there's plenty of other blogs and various other things from your community and your team about things that you can do right now to take action. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for Talk It Out, the Women's Agenda podcast, powered by Eagle Waves Radio. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and jump on the website for more amazing shows. Catch you next time.